What if I told you that the biggest move in XRP's history isn't coming? It's already in motion, and most people are completely missing it. We're talking about a wave of institutional adoption that is quietly building behind the scenes. And when it finally breaks into the open, the people who weren't paying attention are going to be absolutely blindsided. Today, we are going to break down exactly what's happening with XRP right now. From the institutional side, to what's happening on the regulatory front, to what the next 12 to 24 months could actually look like for this asset. Guys, this is one of those videos where you really want to grab a coffee, sit down, and pay attention. Because I think this is going to be one of the more important updates I've put out in a long time. As always, if you get value from this content, please take 2 seconds, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely means the world to me, and it helps more people find this content who need to hear it. All right, let's get into it. So let's just establish where we are right now with XRP, because I think context is everything here. For years, and I mean years, the XRP community has been told to be patient. We've been told the technology is real, the partnerships are real, the use case is real, and every single time we pointed to one of those things, we had a chorus of people telling us we were delusional, that Ripple was a scam, that XRP had no utility, that this was just a banker's coin, which is hilariously ironic given that the entire argument for XRP is that it bridges the global financial system. But we'll get to that. Here's where we are today. The SEC case is behind us. Gary Gensler is gone, and the regulatory environment in the United States has done a complete 180 from where it was even 18 months ago. That is not a small thing. That is massive. For the entire duration of that SEC lawsuit, which lasted years, every serious financial institution that wanted to touch XRP had a massive flashing red light above it that said legal risk. Banks don't do legal risk. Institutional investors don't do legal risk. Asset managers don't do legal risk. They waited, they sat on the sidelines, and they watched. And now that flashing red light is gone. So what do you think those institutions have been doing? Do you think they just forgot about XRP? Do you think they said, all right, the lawsuit's over, we're not interested anymore? Absolutely not. They've been positioning. They've been doing their due diligence. They've been having quiet conversations with Ripple about product integration, about custody solutions, about on-demand liquidity corridors, about all of the things that they couldn't publicly move forward on before. This is what I want people to understand right now. The foundation was built during the hard years. The relationships were maintained. The product stack continued to evolve. And now the dam is about to break. Not because of hype, not because of some Twitter narrative, but because the structural barriers that kept institutions out are being systematically removed one by one. Now let's talk about the XRP ETF conversation, because I think a lot of people have a surface level understanding of what an ETF actually does for an asset, and I want to go a little deeper. Everyone knows that a Bitcoin spot ETF was a watershed moment for Bitcoin. The inflows were extraordinary. But here's what people miss. The ETF wasn't just about retail investors being able to buy Bitcoin in their brokerage accounts. The ETF was a signal. It was a signal to every major financial institution, every wealth manager, every pension fund, every endowment that says this asset has been legitimized by the most regulated financial system on the planet. That signal matters enormously. An XRP spot ETF would do the exact same thing, but arguably with an even more powerful narrative attached to it. Because XRP isn't just a store of value play. XRP has a functional use case that is already operational. So when that ETF gets approved, and I believe it will be approved, you're not just giving institutions a vehicle to gain price exposure. You are sending a signal to every major bank, every payment processor, every financial institution that operates cross-border corridors that the United States government and regulators have formally said this asset is legitimate. That changes the conversation in boardrooms around the world. Not in a, maybe we should look at this way. In a, we need a strategy for this now way. There's a huge difference between those two conversations. And what I find really interesting is the timing. Think about where we are geopolitically. Fragmented payment systems, correspondent banking under incredible pressure, real-time payment networks that stop at the border. Every developed economy in the world is looking for a solution to cross-border payments. And Ripple has spent over a decade building exactly that solution. The ETF legitimizes the asset that sits at the center of it. I want to come back to something I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is the network effect of XRP adoption. I know people throw the phrase network effect around a lot in crypto, and a lot of the time it's just hype language. But with XRP, it's actually the correct framework. Here's why. The utility of XRP, its real utility as a bridge currency, depends on liquidity. The deeper the liquidity, the better the bridge works. The better the bridge works, the more financial institutions want to use it. The more institutions use it, the deeper the liquidity gets. That is a genuine compounding network effect. And here's where it gets really interesting. Every financial institution that plugs into Ripple's network and begins using XRP as a bridge currency is creating a problem for its competitors. Not an existential problem right away, but a cost problem, a speed problem, a settlement efficiency problem. Think about it from the perspective of a mid-sized bank. Right now, you're doing cross-border payments through correspondent banking. You're paying fees. You're waiting 2 to 5 business days for settlement. You're tying up capital in Nostro and Vostro accounts. And you look across the street at your competitor who just implemented an on-demand liquidity solution through Ripple, and they're settling in seconds for a fraction of the cost, freeing up trapped capital to put to work somewhere else. How long before your board is asking you why you haven't done the same thing? That competitive pressure is the mechanism. It's not abstract. It's not theoretical. It is a real, tangible business pressure that plays out in every industry where new technology creates a cost or efficiency advantage. This is how the internet got adopted. This is how cloud computing got adopted. Every major enterprise technology shift has followed this exact pattern. Early adopters get the advantage, and the laggards scramble to catch up. Brad Garlinghouse has said there are thousands of switches, not one. Each institution has its own switch, its own compliance process, its own board approval cycle, its own technical integration timeline. But they are all on the same road, and that road leads to the XRP ledger. And once enough of them flip those switches, the ones who haven't are going to feel the pressure in a very real, very immediate way. Here's something I don't think gets nearly enough attention in the XRP community. The stablecoin ecosystem developing on the XRP ledger right now. Ripple launched its own USD-pegged stablecoin, and I know some people kind of glossed over that announcement, but I want you to think about what that actually means strategically, because Ripple is not just a payments company anymore. They are positioning the XRP ledger as the rails for the broader digital dollar economy. Think about the world that's coming. Central bank digital currencies, tokenized assets, tokenized treasuries, tokenized real estate. The entire concept of programmable money running on blockchain rails. Where does all of that live? It has to live on a ledger that is fast, scalable, low cost, and has institutional credibility. The XRP ledger checks every single one of those boxes. When you pair a Ripple stablecoin with XRP as the native bridge asset, you have an incredibly powerful combination. The stablecoin provides the stable value layer for transactions and settlements. XRP provides the liquidity bridge that makes those transactions possible across different currencies and corridors. Together, they create a complete digital payment infrastructure that serves everything from retail remittances all the way up to institutional FX settlement. The stablecoin play is also Ripple going after a gigantic market historically dominated by Tether and USDC. And Ripple has something those players don't have: the relationships with the financial institutions, the regulatory pedigree, and the native integration with one of the most powerful payment rails ever built. That is a genuinely differentiated position. All right, let me take a few minutes to address the critics because I think it's important to do this honestly. There are still people out there who will tell you XRP is centralized, that Ripple controls everything, that this is just a corporate coin. And look, I've addressed this so many times I almost feel like a broken record. But I'll do it again because new people come to this channel all the time. The XRP ledger runs on a decentralized network of validators. Ripple runs some of those validators. They do not run the majority of them. The ledger does not need Ripple's permission to process transactions. It has run continuously, without interruption, for over a decade. If Ripple disappeared tomorrow, the XRP ledger would keep running. That is not centralization. That is a fully operational, battle-tested, decentralized infrastructure. Compare that to Ethereum, where a small group of insiders made an executive decision to change the monetary policy and consensus mechanism of the entire network. I'm not here to trash Ethereum. It has its own merits. But don't tell me Ethereum is decentralized and XRP isn't when Ethereum's entire foundation was changed by a handful of people in a room. And Solana, fast network, I'll give it that. But Solana has had multiple complete network halts. Multiple times the entire chain just stopped. The XRP ledger has never gone down. Not once. Not in over 10 years. When you're talking about the kind of stability a financial institution needs before they run trillions of dollars of settlement through a network, the XRP ledger stands alone. Why do the critics keep making these arguments? Because they are financially incentivized to. They have early allocations to other projects. They have a vested interest in a world where those other projects win and XRP loses. That's it. Follow the money, and the argument becomes very simple. Let's talk about what I actually think could happen over the next 12 to 24 months. First, I think the XRP spot ETF gets approved. Given the current regulatory environment, it's a matter of when, not if. When that happens, you're going to see institutional inflows that dwarf what we've seen so far. And more importantly, you're going to see that legitimacy signal go out to every boardroom in the financial sector. Second, I think we're going to see a wave of announcements from major financial institutions disclosing they are using or piloting XRP-based payment solutions. These conversations are happening right now. The deals are being structured right now. And they're going to come out publicly at a pace that I think will surprise even the most bullish people in this community. Third, I think the stablecoin ecosystem on the XRP ledger grows significantly. As the regulatory framework for stablecoins gets clearer in the United States and other jurisdictions, Ripple's stablecoin is extremely well positioned to become a major player in that space. And as adoption grows, it drives more activity to the XRP ledger and creates more demand for XRP itself. Fourth, and this is the one I'm most excited about, I think we start seeing real movement on the tokenized asset front. The tokenization of real-world assets is one of the biggest themes in institutional finance right now. Major banks are tokenizing bonds. Asset managers are looking at tokenizing real estate, private equity, commodities. All of that tokenized activity needs a ledger to live on. Ripple has been positioning the XRP ledger for exactly this use case for years. We are going to start seeing some very significant partnership announcements in this space. Put all of that together, and what you have is a scenario where XRP is not just a speculative asset people buy hoping the price goes up. You have XRP as a functional piece of critical financial infrastructure being used every day by major institutions to move trillions of dollars around the globe. That is a fundamentally different kind of asset, and I think the market is going to price it accordingly. Look, guys, I want to be real with you for a second before I wrap up. I've been covering XRP for a long time, and there have been dark moments. Moments where the lawsuit felt like it was never going to end. Moments where it felt like the whole thing might get crushed under regulatory pressure. Moments where the price was down bad and it was easy to wonder if maybe the critics were right. But here's what I always came back to. The technology is real. The use case is real. The partnerships are real. And the team building this thing, they never stopped. Through everything, they kept their heads down and kept building. They landed new partners. They expanded into new markets. They built out the product stack. They did everything you would do if you genuinely believed in what you were building. And now we are on the other side of the hardest part of this journey. The regulatory cloud is gone. The institutional doors are opening. The global conversation around digital payments, tokenized assets, and programmable money is playing directly into everything Ripple has been building for the past decade. I'm not here to give you a price target. I'm not here to tell you XRP is going to be X dollars by Y date. What I am here to tell you is that the fundamental story for XRP has never been stronger than it is right now. And the people who understand what's actually being built here, the people who have done their homework, who get why the XRP ledger matters, why the institutional relationships matter, why the regulatory clarity matters, those people are going to look back on this period as one of the most important inflection points in the history of this asset. Stay focused on what matters. Tune out the noise. And as always, thank you so much for being here, for watching, for your incredible support of this channel. If you got value from this video, please like and subscribe. It genuinely helps more than you know. For now, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.